this is the feeling of insecurity. I am not very sure what exactly Buddha meant, but fever is used in many places. For instance, or manjana, thinking of involved in me, my, I, have that they feel insecure. To express this, Buddha said, this is manjana is thorn, manjana is disease, manjana is fever, and so forth. So these are almost synonymous with uncertainty and not knowing what to do.
Okay, thank you, Bhante. One person asks, they mentioned that there's a lot of sad news and therefore lots of people are dealing with sadness. How do you recommend coping with all the sadness that people are experiencing, Bhante?
Sadness is also very natural in a situation like this, especially people who are very sympathetic, concern the well-being and happiness of others, feel sad. But on the one hand, we do our best practicing metta and so forth. On the other hand, we must understand our limitation, how much we can do to help all these people. And also losing individuals prematurely makes us feel sad. To overcome that, we must understand the dhamma. The Buddha's dhamma says that this life is uncertain, death is certain. Who said we don't know animitang, ananyatang, macchana idha jivitang, kasirancha paritancha, tancha dukkena sangyutang, and so forth. We don't know the time, place, and what kind of sickness that somebody passes away. We don't know those things. When these things happen, we have to understand that is the nature of our life. We always are vulnerable to sickness, accidents, snake bite. Some such accidents can happen to anybody. This is one of them. This virus is one of them. So that is how we console ourselves. At the same time, we think, well, in spite of all this truth, we have to think to do something for them. And that is why we cultivate metta. So we can get rid of our sadness by doing something that is capable, something within our ability.
So we can combat sadness by developing metta.
Metta, yes.
That's the treatment prescription.
Right.
Thank you, Bhante. Another question, probably the last one until we start our meditation. Someone asks if you could please explain Nama-Rupa.
Well, Nama is contact, feeling, perception, thought, and attention. All these five put together is called Nama. Rupa is made up of 4 elements: earth, water, air, fire, and these are the 2 categories. These are Nama-Rupa. Nama is 5 mental factors. Rupa is 4 physical factors like earth, water, fire, air. And then, of course, Nama, Rupa are Pali words. Nama, it takes a long time to explain. Nama means name. We can know them only by name. For instance, contact. You cannot touch contact, but contact we have to explain in names. We have to use a name. Feeling, we can use a name to name that sensation or whatever feeling. Then perception, Passa, Vedana, Sanya. Then Chetana, thought, volitional formations, and Manasikara, attention. These we can explain in terms of noun. We have to use noun to explain them. Otherwise, there is no way to show them. And the Rupa also we have to explain by name, by appearance, occupying space, their characteristics, their qualities. So for using these, their characters, their qualities, their components, we can explain Rupa. Rupa means form. Nama means name, in short. These are 2 Pali words.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay.
Does anyone have any quick questions? We have 2 minutes left. Bhante, one question from the room here: how to separate Nama-Rupa, Nama and Rupa, to see the path?
In fact, they work together. Mentality depends on materiality, materiality depends on mentality in living beings, and therefore they are inseparable. And also they are functioning together, and therefore it is difficult to separate. But consciousness is in between mentality and materiality. Nama is one group, Rupa is another group. In between these 2, and the agent that work function between these 2 is consciousness, vijnana. So it is almost inseparable. Even according to, we don't use that much Abhidhamma, they all are ekuppada, nirodho, ekarammalambana, and so forth. They rise together, they pass away together, and they take the same object, and therefore they are, they eventually turn out to be mental state, and difficult to separate them. They always go together. When one falls, the other falls. Remember that the simile of bamboo, bundles of 2 bamboo sticks. Yeah. Okay.
Shall we meditate?
Yeah, let us start our meditation now. As usual, we start with our Metta practice. May all beings be happy and secure. May all beings have happy minds. Whatever living beings there may be, without exception, weak or strong, long, large, medium, short, subtle or gross, visible or invisible, living near or far, born or coming to birth, may all beings have happy minds. Let no one deceive another, nor despise anyone anywhere, neither from anger nor ill will should anyone wish harm to another. As a mother would risk her own life to protect her only child, even so towards all living beings, one should cultivate a boundless heart. One should cultivate for all the world the heart of boundless loving friendliness, above, below, and all around, unobstructed, without hate or resentment, whether standing, walking, sitting, lying down, or whenever awake. One should develop this mindfulness. This is called divinely dwelling here, not falling into erroneous views, but virtuous and endowed with vision, removing desires for sensual pleasures. One comes never again to birth in the womb. Friends, as we repeat, somebody just asked a question, how we avoid feeling sad. This is one way. Within our capacity, our strength, within our limited time, space, ability, energy, due to other restrictions, we cannot do too much. At least each and every one of us develop metta and wish all these beings honestly, sincerely to be free from these afflictions. And then with this very powerful background, let us breathe, noticing the breath, inhaling, exhaling, and the pause in between inhaling and exhaling. And then we experience, while inhaling, we experience feelings. We don't create feeling. Feeling naturally arises as we breathe in and breathe out. Perceive the breath mentally. We cannot see the breath, but we can perceive it. Then we have attention to the breath. Then we have consciousness. We are aware of it. All these arise as we breathe in and out. They arise as we breathe in. They arise as we breathe out. And they also pass away as we breathe in and out. They don't linger after we finish each breath. The feeling, perception, thought, and consciousness that arise while we are breathing in will disappear when we breathe out, and new feeling, perception, thought, and consciousness arises to notice the new feeling, new exhaling. And they all continuously change. And then with this awareness, we stay on our breath, and then breath becomes subtler and subtler and subtler, because there is nothing to excite. We just become aware of what really is happening. Then as breath becomes subtler, it becomes calm, relaxed, and very gentle. In that state, our body becomes soft and gentle and relaxed. Mind becomes relaxed. Then our hindrances, greed, resentment, restlessness and worry, then sleepiness and drowsiness and doubt, all pass away, disappear, because we experience something very natural and we stay with them without thinking of the past or the future. Just keep mind focused on what is happening right now, this moment. This is what the Buddha said, keeping mind in the present. Parimukhaṁ satim. Parimukha sati means mindfulness in the present moment. When we are mindful in the present moment, all hindrances subside, disappear, and then we gain concentration. This concentration may not be jhana, but it is a very good state of consciousness, concentration, and with that we spend this next few minutes. And if somebody for somehow gain jhana during this short meditation, that is very good. That is quite unlikely, but if it is for happen to somebody, then they will be very happy. So we all, with these few words of instructions, let us practice. Dukkhapatthaca nidukkha, bhayapatthaca nibhaya, sokapatthaca nisoka, hontu sabbe pipanino. May the suffering be free from suffering. May the fear-struck be free from fear. May the grieving be free from grief. So too may all living beings. Once again this evening, with this pure, clear state of mind, full of metta, clarity, we must wish with very good attitude, wholeheartedly, without any reservation, we must share this boundless thought called metta with all those who are in pain, suffering, afflicted, in hospitals, homes, on the road, wherever they are, and also those who help them in various ways. Medical professionals, their assistants, and those who make decisions, and whatever they use to help these people, so they are so sometimes exhausted in spite of all wonderful good intention. And they also need our metta for them to have a courage, understanding and determination to face this very, very difficult situation and help as many as possible and liberate from suffering. Metta is living, friendly thought, boundless, unlimited, very noble, wholesome thought. And with this, I want to open the floor for people to ask me more questions.
Okay. Just taking a look at the questions here. Bhante, one question is, what happens to the mind after death?
Well, if the mind is totally free from all defilements, you attain nibbana. If the mind is not free from defilements, especially when you have desire and ignorance, you definitely will take rebirth. So the mind or consciousness is the carrier of desire and ignorance. So it is what happens after death. The mind, also called consciousness, generates another life. It doesn't mean that the same mind, same consciousness goes from one life to another. But depending on the current mental states, another form of life begins. And that is called rebirth.
Bhante, this is quite an academic question. Bhante, does I consciousness identify what comes in front of the eye as an animal, person, mother, etc.? Or is it that the I consciousness only identifies the image and that the mind consciousness is what identifies it as an animal, person, mother, etc.? Please clarify.
No. There are 6 kinds of consciousness. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, nose consciousness, tongue consciousness, body consciousness, and mind consciousness. Eye consciousness does not arise by itself. There has to be 2 eye and visual objects. Similarly, ear and sound, nose and odor, tongue and taste, tongue, and then body and the tangible, and the mind and mind object. When these come together, for instance, eye and visual objects meet, consciousness arises. So, when the mind comes in contact with mental objects are the object that we have brought into the mind through our six senses. And then this I sometimes would like to call counterpart image, because these are the object that we store in our mind, and then mind becomes conscious of them as they arise, and therefore that is called mind consciousness. They are called, Buddha has given a simile. When you have fire, if it is forest fire starting in the forest, it is called forest fire. If the fire starts in the sawdust, that is sawdust fire. If the fire starts in from any particular fuel, grease fire, gas fire, and so forth, we use the word fire and according to the name, according to the fuel, forest fire, stove fire, grease fire, gas fire, and so forth. Similarly, when the eye and visual objects come together, it is called eye consciousness. When the nose and odor, smell come together, it is called nose consciousness. That is how we use the consciousness, because consciousness is not something independently arising. Consciousness arises depending on other things. When these two coming together is a condition for consciousness to arise.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay, yes. Any other question?
Bhante, in the famous verse uttered by Venerable Assaji to Venerable Sariputta, what is the dhamma being referred to? Ye dhamma hetuppabhavā.
Ye dhamma hetuppabhavā, tesaṁ hetu tathāgato tesañca yo nirodho evaṁvādī mahāsamaṇoti. Whatever arises is Buddha found the hetu, the reason for them to arise. For instance, in this case, it refers exactly to the factors in the dependent origination. For instance, ignorance, depending on ignorance, arises volitional formations. Avidya paccaya saṅkhāra. Saṅkhāra arises dependent on ignorance, and depending on saṅkhāra, mentality and materiality arise, and so forth. So, the Venerable Assaji told Upatissa, that time he was not Sariputta, Upatissa, when he asked him to give the Buddha's teaching in brief, in a nutshell, he said that whatever arises, Buddha, my teacher, told whatever arises has a cause. And then ye dhamma hetuppabhavā, the all dhammas arising from a cause. And then he said, these dhammas cease to exist when the cause comes to an end. So, as I mentioned in earlier one day, answering somebody's questions, for dependent origination, there also must be always two. When one arises, the other arises. When one passes away, other passes away. So this is the dependent origination formula. So it says, you give anything, think of anything that has a cause, and the cause is sankhara, the result is called sankhata. Sankhata, one is condition, other is the conditioned. So one is the cause, other is the result. And the result can be a cause for another result. And that result can be a cause for another result. This is sort of a linear explanation, but there is no one single cause for everything. One cause can have many other subordinate causes to support it as auxiliary factors. And therefore, when he said ye dhamma, he used the plural, and tesaṁ also plural, possessive case. And so that is the gist of what he said when it was Assaji.
Thank you, Bhante. Bhante, during our guided meditations at the beginning of each session, you describe the breath in context of the five aggregates.
Yes.
This question is related to that.
Mm-hmm.
In each breath that is born, is each breath that is born, arises and passes away, made of aggregates as we human beings are made of aggregates? So in other words, the same aggregates that you're describing as the breath being consisted of, is that how we human beings are? Maybe she's referring to the body and the Nama-Rupa.
Yes.
Mind and matter.
All beings who have mentality and materiality, body and mind, have these aggregates, five aggregates. When we breathe, the feeling aggregate appears. We call it aggregate because it is made up of several other factors. When we say feeling, it has a pleasant feeling, unpleasant feeling, neutral feeling, carnal feeling, spiritual feeling. 108 kind of feelings are there. Several of them can arise each inhaling. Several of them, and then perception, feeling, perception. Perception is of the object of breath. Breath is the object, and we perceive. And then attention, volitional formation. Attention is called, I call volitional formation because we had to do it with will. Then feeling, perception, attention, and consciousness. consciousness aggregate. The breath is body aggregates, form aggregate, because breath is also made up of elements. It has earth element, water element, air element, fire element, and therefore breath is called body. And then on the form element, then the feeling element, perception element, element means aggregate. Then consciousness aggregate, volitional formations aggregate. I use them very briefly, but you get to understand when I say feeling, all kind of feeling can arise. May not be at the same time, but some of the pleasant feeling or unpleasant feeling or neutral feeling can arise. That belongs to feeling aggregate. Perception, the perception of the feeling, perception of the breath, all belong to perception aggregate. Intention, volitional formations. While we are breathing in, we have intentional breathing. We may have intention to have peace, intention to get rid of our hindrances, intention to gain concentration and so forth. All these are wholesome volitional formations, aggregate. And then consciousness, awareness belong to consciousness aggregate. Eye consciousness, ear consciousness, in this case, the breath consciousness that comes through the nose, and nose consciousness, nostril consciousness, and so forth. Earlier I mentioned 6 kinds of consciousness. We can divide them into various subdivisions depending on the state we experience. And therefore they all belong to consciousness aggregate. So 5 aggregates are working while we are breathing in and out. Inside also form aggregates is functioning. As I mentioned, inside every part is receiving oxygen as we breathe in. And then this oxygen rejuvenate, or new cells will arise, and that also gets oxygen. And inside there is an enormous amount of activities which we don't see, but these activities really become active only because of oxygen moving in and out. If there is no oxygen, they might activate, they might work like the what do you call this, bacteria will have their own life. They will have reproduced, they will pass their gas, and so forth. They will do inside. And therefore inside is another big operating incredible machine. And these all are functioning. So therefore they all belong to form aggregate, feeling aggregate, and so forth. And that is what we have to remember. They all are happening while we are breathing in and out. Lot of things are happening inside our body and mind.
Okay, Bhante G is going to answer this last question. Bhante, what would be your advice on how to interact skillfully with someone who is hostile and not easy to be advised?
Yeah, my advice is have patience is very good weapon to deal with hostile people, unfriendly people, and so forth. And also when you have, that is why Buddha said, Kanti Paraman Tapo, Kanti Paraman Tapo. Paramount or austere practice is patience. Highest austere practice is patience. That always comes handy whenever we have to deal with difficult persons. I know this from my own personal experience, so this is not just telling you something from books.
Thank you, Bhante.
Okay?
Bedtime.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Everybody?
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Bhante.
Hi, Brian.
Hi, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante. Sadhu.
Sadhu, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante.
Let me read this to you. I just muted it. All right. Okay.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Bhante. Stop.